Today we got a question of, hey, what happens if Guardians 3 and Ms. Marvel doesn't do so well? Check it out.
Hey, John, this is Tad, big Marvel fan, and I just want to know, what does Marvel do if Guardians 3 and the Marvels are both really bad? I mean, I don't think they have to be great, but they have to be good. They have to, they have to make a lot of money, obviously, or, be profitable. But what happens if those movies aren't real well received? Thanks, and what I gotta do to be on the show, man? All right.
Well, on the show you are, Zach. Here you are. All right, this is a good question. Now, look, we often, whenever a new Star Wars or a new DC or a new Harry Potter or a new Marvel or whatever, what happens if this movie fails? That's always the big question, right? But I would contend that question for Marvel is becoming a little bit more relevant. Look, one of the things that I've always said when people ask, because whenever a new Marvel movie's coming out, inevitably you get 1,000 people writing and ask, what happens if this movie fails? Well, then it fails. Then they'll just move on. They just keep going. Because Marvel, unlike the old DC, is not hyper overreactionary, right? If things are going well, listen, you got to expect, most studios are 50-50. They put out a good movie, they put out a bad movie, they put out a good movie, and whatever. But Marvel has had such a long track record of success that it's always been the case that, hey, if they hit a movie that's a real stinker, oh well, they brush it off and move on because they've got such a great track record of success. I will say this. It's getting a little bit more questionable because lately, the MCU has not fired on all cylinders consistently like they did in the first three things. Yeah, every once in a while you had an Iron Man 2.
Yeah.
Right? Or a Thor the Dark World. Yeah. But for the most part, you were almost guaranteed when you would go to a Marvel movie through the first three phases that you were going to have a banger of a time. And the movie was going to be hugely successful and blah, blah, blah. That was just the standard norm. It's not so much that anymore. There's still very good track records still, but I mean, it's not as home run guaranteed as it was. And if we go back and look now at the last three Marvel outings, we've seen they've all performed under what the previous film in their series has done. Take a look at this. So like Ant-Man and the Wasp 2, the second Ant-Man movie, made $622 million at the box office. But the more recent one that just came out, Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania, it only managed to pull in $474 million, which once again was more than what?
Black Adam.
There we go. Still more than Black Adam.
Yeah.
Still more than Black Adam, but it made 400. Still, that represents a noticeable drop. Also, one of the three most recent movies, the first Black Panther made $1.35 billion at the box office. Now, Black Panther Wakanda Forever made $859 million. Now, $859 million is still a number that most directors would kill to have a movie that makes that much.
Nothing to sneeze at.
It is still a remarkably huge success for them. They made them lots of money. But, and you got to keep in mind that it was without its main star. It was without its main title character, all that kind of stuff. But still, that represents a significant drop from the first one. I would contend that the first movie was also a markedly better movie than the second one. But there's that. But it's not just Ant-Man and the Wasp and Black Panther. Also, recently we had Thor: Love and Thunder. The last Thor movie made $855 million at the box office. By the way, I think Thor Ragnarok is the top 10 greatest comic book movie of all time. I think it's that good. But Thor: Love and Thunder, coming off of the momentum of Thor Ragnarok, you would expected the numbers to go up like they did from the first Thor to the second Thor, from the second Thor to the third Thor. You would have kind of expected it to do the same. But Thor: Love and Thunder got a little bit more of a mixed reception. And while not a huge drop in box office, instead of going up, it went down. So that makes, bring that up again, Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania, last film, made more. Black Panther, the last film, made more. Thor, the last film, made more. That's three movies in a row Now, before that was Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, and that made a shit ton of money, more than the previous one. But the last 3 movies in a row have all made less than their previous in their series. And that becomes a little bit more concerning. Because as we go over and look at this, so Captain Marvel made $1.13 billion at the box office. I don't think anybody's expecting the Marvels to make as much, and it certainly doesn't need to make as much to be considered a huge, massive hit. But still, and Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 made $863 million. Can Guardians 3 match that or get close or exceed it? Now, again, the reason why I think the question is different today than it was years ago is because years ago, they were just winning all the time. So yeah, if theoretically the next Marvel movie is a road bump and doesn't do well, well, then there's no need to panic. Who cares? It's like one bad one out of the last 5. Brush it off, we move on. But let's say theoretically speaking, and I do not expect Guardians 3 or the Marvels to perform badly. Let me just be clear about that. I don't expect either of those films to perform badly. But hypothetically and theoretically speaking, which we as film fans do, if theoretically both of these films, let's say, underperform and end up being disappointments to the fans, to the critics, whatever, well, then actually Marvel has a bigger problem than they would have had, say, 4 years ago if they had put out 1 or 2 bad films in a row, because that would make like 5. That would make like 5 films in a row. Granted, Thor Love and Thunder still made a lot of money. Granted, Black Panther Wakanda Forever still made a lot of money. Yes, but it would represent for them something, territory they've never been in, which is 5 films in a row that ended up performing under what the previous installment of their franchise did. 1 loss is a loss. 2 losses is unfortunate. 3 losses is a losing streak. And 5 would represent a bad streak, a negative streak. I would say this, what actually practically happens? Again, 3 years ago, I would say nothing. Nothing. You just keep going forward with your plan because you're going to hit a road bump once in a while. But now, if it's 5 in a row, I think there will be some panic buttons being pressed. Not a let's blow everything up panic button, but rather I think you will see and hear of some really significant moves. Moves like the upcoming Avengers movies get new writers, maybe even new directors, maybe even a complete shift around of their timeline or whatever. You'll hear about them backing up a dump truck full of seized Nazi gold to Robert Downey Jr.'s house to get him to come back as Iron Man. You will hear about, all the money in the world being backed up to the house of Chris Evans to get him to come back. You're going to see some pretty extreme things happen. Now, I've always thought that Robert Downey Jr. and Chris Evans are going to come back anyway at some point in some capacity. But if they go 5 in a row, then they're simply going to have to sit down and say, our post-Endgame strategy, and I'm not saying they're there yet. Nobody overreact to this. I'm not saying they're there yet. But I'm saying if they hit 5 films in a row where their films perform under what their previous installments did, you're going to see them questioning their direction and bringing into question whether their post-Endgame strategy is working or not. Again, I don't want to sound like I'm overly poo-pooing Disney or Marvel. I've not been the biggest fan of Phase 4. It is what it is. I don't think Phase 5 is off to a particularly great start. I didn't like Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania personally. But within everything after Endgame, there have been some brilliance. Spider-Man No Way Home, Shang-Chi, Ms. Marvel, WandaVision. There have been some big hits, but also a lot of okay stuff and some not so good stuff at all. If they go 5 in a row, big shakeups. I'm not saying Kevin Feige is going to be out the door. I'm not saying, but big shakeups, maybe replanning, maybe moving release dates, maybe bringing in new sets of writers or directors. They're just going to have to rethink their approach they're taking. 1 bad movie, you don't do that. 2 bad movies, you don't do that. 3, 4, 5 in a row that underperform your expectations, then you have to say, because that's now a pattern. That is now a pattern. Anyway, Chris, we're speaking purely hypothetically here, because I do expect Guardians 3 to, number 1, be great and to do very well.
We believe.
We believe with a little rocket there. But
you're going to make it, buddy.
Let's talk in theoreticals.
I believe you.
In theoreticals. Mm-hmm. what is the significance and what does happen if, say, like the Marvels and Guardians 3 both underperform and fail to impress the audience and the critics? What do you think?
I mean, we go back to the proverbial drawing board, don't we? Because, I mean, it was at the end of April of last year, of 2022, where we knew that Kevin Feige was going off on the Marvel retreat to plan out the next 10 years of Marvel. And so we're going to just, be like Ross and Friends. We're going to pivot, and we're going to pivot hard. All right? Because you can't be completely reactionary, right? That was one of the things that was the problem with WB, is they were constantly course correcting from any reactions.
Any small bump.
Anything at all. And Marvel has, for the most part, stayed the course. But to your point, after 5 movies that do not perform at their peak, you do have to reevaluate things. And you do have to see, okay, what are the commonalities here? What actually are things that are making these movies not as effective as they used to be? Is it our edit? Is it our marketing? Is it the stories that we're telling? Are we not focusing on characters the way that we should be? Those sort of things. You go back to the drawing board and you see what you need to do. Now, I think that Guardians is going to be a solid moment for us. I really, really do. I've got so much faith in James Gunn, his grasp on these characters. I think the Christmas special, honestly, was a lovely little reminder of, hey, we know what we're doing here. We've got this. We understand who the Guardians are. We're going to tug on those heartstrings and still also have some really ridiculous, goofy things. We're going to have amazing celestial kind of moments, like stuff that happens cosmically, but still going to feel really grounded because it's all about these characters who are a chosen family. And that's where James Gunn really, really thrives too, is when he tells stories about chosen families.
Yeah.
So I feel like this is going to be getting back to what always made Marvel's heart tick, and that is character-driven stories with characters, people, rodents, whoever, that we really, really care about. And I think it's going to be a reminder of what Marvel should be focusing on in the future.
All right, guys, the question is for you. What do you think will happen here? Again, it's all hypothetical and theoretical, but theoretically speaking, let's say Guardians 3 underperforms. I don't think it will, and the Marvels disappoints and underperforms. What then does Marvel need to do? What then will Marvel actually do? Will they just continue to stay the course? Will they say, hey, that's 5 films in a row that have performed under what their previous installments did? Maybe we need to evaluate. Are they going to push a panic button? Are they just going to be really calm about it? Whatever you guys think, jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. We want to thank a sponsor of this video, Mint Mobile. From the gas pump to the grocery store, your utility bills and favorite streaming services, inflation is everywhere. Seriously, make it stop. Thankfully, there's one company out there that's giving you a much needed break. It's Mint Mobile. As the first company to sell premium wireless service online only, Mint Mobile lets you order from home and save a ton with phone plans starting at just $15 a month. You guys know that ever since I switched to Mint Mobile, I've been saving almost 70% a month over my old phone plan. For people looking for extra savings this year, Mint Mobile offers premium wireless for just $15 a month. By going online only and eliminating the traditional cost of retail, Mint Mobile passes the significant savings on to you. All of their plans come with unlimited talk and text plus high-speed data delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. Use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan and keep your same phone number along with all your existing contacts. Switch to Mint Mobile and get premium wireless service starting at just $15 a month. To get your new wireless plan for just $15 a month and get the plan shipped to your door for free, go to mintmobile.com/Campea. That's mintmobile.com/Campea. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/Campea.